I canceled my daughter's hard-earned school trip, told her to get over it, then punished both her and her brother when she dared to be upset. Now my entire family has turned against me and I don't know how to fix the damage. I'm a 46-year-old father with 2 kids, Courtney who's 14 and Jeremiah who's 16. Their mother and I separated years ago, and although people assume the split was messy, it really wasn't. The part that's messy is everything that's happened since. I've always considered myself a strict parent, but not unreasonable, and I don't think expecting respect and follow through from my kids makes me some kind of tyrant. I work full-time in a technical field. I keep the bills paid. I'm involved in their schools, and I've always pushed them to take their opportunities seriously. I didn't grow up with that kind of support, so maybe I overcorrect. That's what my sister keeps saying now, even though she used to tell me I was the only stable one in the family. Funny how people switch sides once they find a reason. The problem started a few weeks ago, but the groundwork for all of it has probably been building for a lot longer. Courtney has been saving for this school trip since last year. It's a coastal science camp the school runs every spring. Not cheap, but not outrageous either. They do tide pool research, lab work, and some kind of mentorship thing. All I knew was she wanted it badly enough that she picked up chores from neighbors and skipped out on outings so she could put money away. I liked seeing that kind of responsibility in her. I thought it meant she was finally growing out of the phase where she shuts down whenever something doesn't go her way. The tension started the night before I canceled the trip. We had gone to my brother's house for dinner. He and I have always had this unspoken rivalry that started back when we were kids. He brags without thinking and pretends it's a joke, but it never lands like one. He has a daughter the same age as Courtney, and everything is always a competition. Her grades, her sports, her club activities. And he always makes a point to remind me when she's ahead of mine, even if it's by something small. He made a comment at dinner about Courtney only wanting to go to the science camp so she could goof off at the beach like last time. I didn't understand why he said that until later, because I don't remember ever telling him anything like that. I didn't think too much of it in the moment, but it definitely sat with me. By the time we got home that night, my patience was already worn thin. The house was a mess. Dishes in the sink, backpacks dumped near the stairwell, the usual. Jeremiah was supposed to clean the kitchen before we left and didn't. Courtney was supposed to have finished her chores before dinner, and she didn't. I called both of them downstairs and asked why everything was undone when they had all afternoon. Jeremiah shrugged it off like it wasn't a big deal. Courtney told me she'd been finishing a project for school, which I didn't know anything about because she never mentioned one. She said she planned to do her chores after, but I felt like it was a pattern lately where she stretched the truth or kept things to herself to avoid being told no. Once I was already irritated, I made a decision I don't think I would have made if I hadn't just come from my brother's house being compared to him again. I told Courtney the trip was off. I told her that if she wanted to act like things weren't important, then I wasn't going to bend over backwards to fund a trip that clearly wasn't being taken seriously. It wasn't about the money, it was about the principle. I expected her to be disappointed, but take it as a lesson. Instead, she completely fell apart. She started crying in a way I've only seen maybe once or twice. She kept saying the trip meant more than I knew, and I honestly thought she was exaggerating. When she got more emotional, I told her she needed to calm down and get over it. I said things don't always go your way, and you don't get to fall apart every time that happens. Jeremiah stepped in and told me I was being unfair, that Courtney had been looking forward to this for months. He went on about how she'd been saving and working hard. I told him to stay out of it, and he kept pushing, so I told him he was grounded too for talking to me like that. The argument got loud, not screaming, but firm enough that apparently the neighbor knocked on the door to check if everything was okay. I didn't hear it at the time, I only found out later. Courtney went upstairs and slammed her door. Jeremiah kept arguing and I told him I was done discussing it. The whole thing lasted maybe 10 minutes but felt longer. I thought that would be the end of it. The next morning, neither kid spoke to me. I tried not to let it get to me, because kids sulk. They move on. That's what I assumed. I went to work. When I got home, they were gone. My wife had picked them up and taken them to her sister's house. I didn't know any of this until my sister-in-law texted me saying Courtney needed space and there was a letter for me. She left an envelope in the mailbox. The letter was from Courtney and it said she was quitting the mentorship connected to the trip because she didn't want to embarrass herself further. That was the first time I ever heard the word mentorship in connection with this trip. I thought it was just a school outing. I didn't know she'd been accepted into anything selective. I didn't know this trip was tied to some STEM program she'd apparently been working toward. I didn't know she had been avoiding telling me because she didn't want my brother to hear about it and overshadow it with his daughter's achievements. Reading that made me feel blindsided. I felt like everyone knew something I didn't. Apparently, even the teachers. Apparently, even my brother. The idea that my own daughter didn't trust me enough to tell me something like that bothered me more than I want to admit. Then I found out Jeremiah had recorded part of the argument. He sent it to their mother and my sister, not the whole thing, just the part where I told Courtney to get over it and said she was grounded. They're acting like that recording is proof that I'm some unhinged monster. I'm not denying I was stern, but it wasn't the way they're painting it. Now my entire family has jumped in. My sister is accusing me of repeating patterns from our childhood. My brother, who caused half this tension in the first place, is suddenly acting like he's above all this and is giving advice no one asked for. Update 1. My wife still isn't talking to me. The kids are staying with my sister-in-law, and if I'm being honest, part of me assumed it would blow over in a day or two. I figured everyone was worked up, and once school settled into its routine, things would cool down. That didn't happen. Instead, the first call I got the next morning wasn't from my wife or son or daughter. It was from my daughter's science teacher. I didn't even know why she was calling at first. I assumed it was about attendance or something small. Instead, she said she needed to discuss logistical issues with the trip I canceled. I told her I wasn't reversing my decision, and she said it wasn't about pressuring me, but about clarifying the program requirements. That wording threw me off, but I agreed to stop by after work. When I got there, she had a folder on the desk with my daughter's name on it. She didn't push it toward me, but it was very clear it was for me. I didn't even know this whole extra layer of the trip existed. I thought it was just a regular school trip, the kind they do every year, the kind parents gripe about because of the cost and chaperones and whatever. Apparently not. Turned out this was tied to some selective STEM mentorship thing my daughter had been semi-quietly working toward. I knew she liked science and engineering, but I didn't know she had actually qualified for something. And the teacher didn't tell me in a bragging way or a guilt trip way. She just laid things out factually. She explained that the trip wasn't just a fun outing. It was essentially the first in-person part of a longer program. There were letters from staff recommending her. There was a write-up she did about a project I didn't know she'd completed. There was even a personal letter she wrote but didn't submit, where she talked about why she wanted a mentor. I didn't know what to say. I didn't get mad at the teacher or anything. I was mostly trying to process why I knew none of this. I thought my daughter told me things. Apparently she tells everyone else except me. The teacher also said something that stuck with me. She said the program already featured her publicly at a school assembly, so when I pulled her out of the trip last minute, it caused a problem for them too. Not in a dramatic ruined everything way, but in a logistical way. They had a slot accounted for. They built part of the group around her. I won't lie, hearing that made me feel put on the spot. I'm not used to the school treating me like I'm the one messing things up. I'm usually the one who's organized and shows up and handles forms. The teacher didn't scold me, but I felt judged anyway. Maybe that's on me. After that meeting, I tried calling my wife, straight to voicemail. Then my son. Ignored. My daughter didn't respond at all. Then came the curveball. The school tried to figure out if they could still take my daughter without my permission. I didn't know they could even consider something like that. Apparently because she's close to 15 and the program has academic merit, the rules are fuzzier than a typical recreational trip. They looped my wife in, not me. She ended up signing some emergency consent to keep my daughter eligible. But my daughter didn't go in the end. She had a panic attack that morning and refused to leave the house. So now we're here. Wife not talking to me. Kids totally shut down. My name is Mud in the extended family group chats apparently. Update 2. I went over to my sister-in-law's house because I was tired of dealing with everything through texts and third-hand messages. I wasn't trying to start anything. I just wanted a straight conversation because up until now, every time I tried talking to my wife or the kids, someone jumped in and shut it down. When I got there, the door was locked and my SIL only opened the screen. She told me they didn't want me coming inside because they didn't want arguments in front of her kids. I didn't push past her or yell or anything, but I told her I wasn't leaving without at least speaking to my own children. My daughter came outside after a few minutes. She stood right behind her mother, like she was unsure if she should be out there at all. She didn't look angry, more like exhausted. She talked slowly, and it was pretty clear she had rehearsed what she wanted to say. She told me that she thinks I only pay attention to her when it fits whatever picture I want in my head of what she's supposed to be doing. She said anytime she works towards something she's actually excited about, I either get irritated, call it a distraction, or decide it's not the right time for her to do it. She said that the only time she remembers me getting enthusiastic about her interests was when it gave me something to brag about at family events. I didn't agree with that at all, but I didn't interrupt. I just listened. But hearing it laid out, that bluntly hit harder than I expected. My son came outside after that. He was angry and kept bringing up things I honestly didn't think were major incidents at the time. He listed them one by one, like the time I took my daughter's phone away for a month because she cried during homework, or the time I told my son he couldn't go to basketball tryouts because he told me to lower my voice, or when I told my daughter she couldn't go to a birthday party because I had a headache and didn't want noise when she got back home. He said I punished them for moods instead of actual behavior. I told him I was trying to teach boundaries and responsibility, but he said it always felt more like I was trying to win. They all seem to think I've been overreacting for years. When everything was said, my wife told me they were staying at her sister's for now because the kids needed space. I didn't fight her on it. I left quietly, but I'm more confused than ever. I don't know how so many things can look one way in my memory and another way in everyone else's. But I also know they're not making this stuff up. They were too detailed and too emotional about it for that. Update 3. I went to my mother's house today because I figured she would be the one person who wouldn't take sides. She has always been the voice of reason, so I thought she could help me understand why the entire family is making this situation 10 times bigger than it should be. It didn't go that way at all. The second I walked in, she asked me to sit down, which already put me on edge because she's not a formal person. She usually just talks while moving around the kitchen. She sat across from me and told me point blank that she had been dreading this conversation for years. She said she'd noticed how I discipline the kids and the way I talk to them when I'm frustrated, and apparently she has been worried I was turning into my father. I honestly didn't know what she meant. My father was strict, but nothing outrageous. At least that's how I remembered it. Then she brought up a memory I had pretty much erased. I was around 15, same age as my daughter now. I'd spent months saving for a technical workshop I'd been excited about. Same thing my daughter saved for with her trip, basically. A few days before the workshop, my father canceled everything because I slammed a door after an argument. I barely remember any of this aside from the embarrassment, but my mother said he didn't cancel it privately. He waited until we were at a family gathering and announced it in front of everyone, making some comment about me not being mature enough to handle responsibility. I guess I cried in front of everyone, and apparently he mocked me the entire drive home for being too sensitive. I don't remember those details. I remember losing the workshop, but not how it went down. According to my mother, it was one of the worst fights they ever had, and she regrets not stepping in more. She said she has watched me repeat the same pattern with my kids without even realizing it. She said something along the lines of parenting through punishment instead of guidance, and that it's something I probably internalized from him. I didn't know what to say. I'm not claiming I'm perfect, but I didn't think I was anywhere near as harsh as my father was. It felt like someone ripped a rug out from under me. I left feeling angry, then confused, then embarrassed, and then back to angry again. I don't even know who I was angry at her, myself, my father, the entire situation. I thought maybe hearing her perspective would make things clearer, but now I'm just stuck thinking about a version of my childhood that doesn't match what I've been telling myself all these years. After I got home, my daughter sent me a long message. Not yelling, not emotional, just very direct. She told me she hadn't just missed the science trip. There was something tied to it she hadn't told anyone except her teacher. Apparently there was going to be a private assessment with a panel for a scholarship opportunity. Not guaranteed, but something that could have changed a lot for her. She said she didn't tell me because she assumed I'd downplay it, or tell her she was too young to worry about those things. She said she didn't feel like she could celebrate anything academic around me because I make everything into a lecture or an issue. She said the exact words. She didn't want to compete with me in her own house. That one stung because I didn't think I ever treated her success as competition. I thought I was being realistic and keeping her grounded, but apparently the way she sees it, I only get enthusiastic when it's something that aligns with what I think matters, and everything else gets brushed off or controlled. My wife later added more context I genuinely wasn't ready for. She said she was already considering divorce last year because she felt like the kids were constantly on edge around me. She said she kept quiet because she didn't want to destabilize the house, her words, while both kids were dealing with school and activities. She said the only reason nothing happened sooner was because the kids begged her not to make things worse. She said the tension in the house has been building for a long time, and I either didn't notice or chose to ignore it. Then my son talked to me privately. He admitted something I didn't know about. For the past few months, he has been sleeping on the floor in my daughter's room a few nights a week because she wakes up with panic attacks. I didn't even know she had panic attacks. He said she didn't want me to know because she didn't want it turned into another argument about responsibility or attitude or whatever else I usually bring up. He said he feels like he has to protect her from me when I'm in a mood. He said she flinches whenever I raise my voice, even if it's not at her. He said he doesn't want to move back into the house for a while because it feels safer at my sister-in-law's place. I'm not going to pretend hearing that didn't knock the wind out of me. I didn't think I was anywhere near that type of parent. I didn't think I was someone kids needed to be protected from. I thought I was being firm and consistent. I thought the issue with the trip was just frustration building up. I didn't think it was part of a bigger pattern that everyone except me apparently noticed. I know Reddit likes clean labels: abusive, narcissistic, controlling, whatever else. I'm not trying to paint myself as some misunderstood hero, but I'm also not trying to flip into a dramatic self-hatred moment. I'm trying to look at things plainly, and right now it feels like I've been parenting in a way that isn't lining up with the reality my kids have been living in. Final update. After my last update, my wife decided she wasn't moving back into the house right now. She met with a lawyer and filed for a temporary legal separation. I didn't fight it. I'm not proud of the fact that it took legal paperwork for me to realize how serious things had become. She told me plainly that she needed a formal structure to protect the kids' routines and give them stability, especially with how the last few months have gone. I know some people will assume this is the beginning of a divorce, and maybe it is, but for now she's calling it temporary, and I'm trying to respect that. The kids are staying with my sister-in-law. I offered to switch houses so they could stay here and I'd go elsewhere. But my wife said they feel safer where they are right now and that moving them again would just make things worse. It hurt hearing that, but I don't get to pick how they feel. I also found out my son asked specifically to stay longer because he didn't want his sister sleeping alone. I had no idea she'd been having panic attacks at night. They both kept that from me, and realizing they felt they had to hide, that made me feel sick. The school reached out again, but for something surprising. The STEM coordinator said they were aware of everything going on because part of the mentorship program was tied to school records and attendance. They offered my daughter a spot in a remote mentorship that doesn't require travel and still gives her direct access to the engineering team she was supposed to meet on the trip. They said she didn't have to decide right away, but she accepted immediately. She didn't tell me. My wife told me later, mostly so I wouldn't find out secondhand and get upset. I'm glad she took the opportunity, but it stung knowing she didn't want to involve me in something I should have been supporting from the start. My son told me he plans to stay with my sister-in-law through the summer so he can help his sister adjust to the new program. I tried to tell him he didn't have to take that responsibility on, but he shut that down. He said he wasn't doing it because he felt forced. He said he was doing it because he doesn't trust me to react calmly if things get stressful. Again, not fun to hear, but I'm not ignoring statements like that anymore. On my end, I've started everything my wife asked for: a parenting course, anger management, weekly individual therapy, and I agreed to family therapy whenever she and the kids feel ready. I didn't realize how defensive I'd become over the years until the therapist pointed out how often I jumped straight into explanations instead of just acknowledging what my kids said. I'm trying to fix that. Trying being the key word. It's not coming naturally. So I'm going to keep doing the work. Not for show, not for optics, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I don't want to be the kind of father my kids tiptoe around. If that means spending months or years rebuilding a relationship I damaged in a matter of days, then that's what I'll do. That's the final update. If anything changes, it'll be because my kids decide they're ready, not because I pushed for it.